Constipation is when you have infrequent stools, when you have hard stools, and when your baby strains a lot when passing poop. So how do we prevent this from happening to our babies? Number one, hydration. Yes, your baby has to drink water after every meal. Remember, water is a food group. For a balanced diet to be complete, water has to be there. The second thing is add more fiber to your baby's food. The biggest sources of fiber is usually the plant sources. So we are talking about the fruits, we are talking about vegetables, we are talking about seeds, we are talking about grains, and we are talking about nuts. These are the biggest sources of fiber we have. These are all whole foods. We expect you to take whole fruits, we expect you to take whole vegetables and nuts and seeds. That means none of these should be processed. Whatever you do, make sure you have at least 2 of the high fiber foods in your baby's meal at any point in time. That means whatever you serve must have a whole grain, must have at least a vegetable or a fruit or a seed or a nut. For example, you're taking ugali, and if you're doing ugali, it's nice to have a whole grain ugali. A whole grain ugali, it means it's the one that has just been done by the tinga. Yes, that's a whole grain ugali. Anything else, it's a processed ugali. And then you could be having beans without removing the covering. So what you do, you cook the beans as they are. Don't remove anything from the beans. You can have your vegetables, you can have your kienyeji, and you can have your fruit and a glass of water. That's a perfect balanced diet. The third way of preventing constipation is exercising. Exercising, depending on the age of the baby. So if you're dealing with an infant who cannot crawl as yet, or cannot stand, or cannot move, the best way to exercise them is to do bicycle rides. You make them lie down, and then you mimic them by riding a bicycle. Do this as frequent as possible and as many times as possible, as long as your baby is comfortable and you are comfortable. For a baby who is moving, let them move. So if a child is already crawling, let them crawl. If your child can stand and move with support, let them do that as many times as possible. That way, they not only move their bodies, but they are also moving their bowels. Prebiotics is food for the gut bacteria. The commonest source is usually garlic, onions, bananas, and in this case is the ripe bananas. So remember to add this. We do onions every day. As long as you cook food, chances are you've eaten an onion today. Again, for garlic, I remember we said this when we were discussing on weaning. Garlic has so many benefits, and this is just one of them. It's a prebiotic, and also ripe banana as a fruit. It's very important, easy to digest, provides food for the gut bacteria, and once you have good gut bacteria, usually constipation will not be a problem. Now, probiotics is actually the bacteria, the good bacteria in your gut. You need the good bacteria to balance so that everything works smoothly. The digestion works smoothly, the bowel movement also is smooth and in good frequency. So sometimes you have to actually take probiotics. If you take a lot of processed food, if you take a lot of junk, if you take a lot of antibiotics, most of the time you will have deranged probiotics in your system. So even though you take prebiotics, sometimes you have to take probiotics. That means you have to take the bacteria into your gut, so that as a way of introducing this good bacteria into your gut, and then now feeding with the prebiotic. This is just to give you a hint on the foods that you could be eating and could be the cause of your miserable constipation. First thing is actually unripe bananas. Yes, unripe bananas. Unripe bananas are very good. They have so many advantages in our body, a great source of good starch in our body. But it's also very complex. The digestion of unripe bananas for some people is not very easy and it's not very smooth. So for some people, not all, but some, they'll have constipation when they take unripe bananas. This is because the complexity of the starch slows down the digestion process, and also it's quite heavy to digest. The second thing is, we said this before, processed grains. Anything white, from white ugali to white rice to white pasta to, yes, white bread, anything white, just know it is processed, unfortunately. And because it is processed, it's a risk for you to get constipation. Anytime, all the time, choose whole grains, organic whole grains. The third thing is milk and dairy products. We said not everyone can digest milk and dairy product. The protein is quite heavy. And again, if you're one of those people, milk and dairy products are likely to cause constipation. So if mom is breastfeeding and a child exclusively, usually milk is the first thing we tell them try to stop, as we go down to all these other things that could cause constipation. Fat, fast foods, and red meat. Fat, fast foods, and red meat. Yes, a big no, causes constipation. It doesn't do it overnight, but after some time, all of a sudden, you just feel your bowel movements changing. All of a sudden. I mean, there are people who are used to taking a packet of crisps every day. There are people who are just used to taking at least fries twice or thrice in a week. There are people who are just used to taking burgers. All these carbonated drinks, processed things. Yeah, constipation is on the way. If you want the natural way of easing constipation, these are the things that you really have to look into. Red meat. Very high fat content, very little, if any, fiber content. So what does that mean? The digestion is super slow. And if digestion is super slow, constipation sets in. So whatever you do, do in moderation. Alcohol causes dehydration and, yes, may risk constipation. Doesn't cut across, but if someone is breastfeeding and you have to take some alcohol, just remember this may cause constipation. Gluten, commonly we take a lot of wheat. There are so many people who cannot think of breakfast without wheat. A day without wheat is almost impossible, but it is possible. So if you're used to taking wheat every day, every breakfast, sometimes people you take chai and chapati, then in the afternoon you take beans and chapati, and then supper you take fries. Yeah, fries and soda. Then you go to bed. Trust me, it won't take long. So just remember, if you're a mom or if you're in a family and you're having issues of constipation, these are some of the things, very basic things that if only you could change, also your health will change and your gut will be happy. Thank you so much. This is the Health Channel.